Hi folks, in this video I run into a few issues with some of the software I'm using on the computer that I record these on. I'm a software engineer and I know how difficult it can be to write software that works in a variety of scenarios on a variety of machines. I also know that a majority of the software in the GIS world is open source and often worked on during personal time outside of an existing job. Even the tool that I made specifically for this video is pretty rough around the edges and likely bug-ridden. While I don't want to disparage the folks who work on this software, I still wanted to show that things don't always go as planned, and you often have to find workarounds for issues that you encounter. When you don't have too many activities recorded on Strava, then it's not too much work to download them individually. You just head to the activity, click on the three dots, and choose Export GPX. You can also do that on the map down here. But if you have a lot of activities, it's likely easier to get an archive of them from Strava. So let me show you how to do that. So once you've logged into your account, you're going to head to the upper right, hover over your profile picture, and then click on Settings. On that page, you're going to go over to the left and click on My Account. Then you want to scroll down to the bottom where it says Download or Delete Your Account, and you're going to click Get Started. There's some things to read through here, but you are mainly interested in the second part, which is clicking on Request Your Archive. Now, I've already done that here in order to receive files for this video. Once you click this button, it'll take some time for Strava to collect all your information up and turn it into a zip file. You will then get an email, and when you get that email, there'll be a link to download that file. So on the left here, I've got the Strava Archive that I downloaded, and on the right is a project folder for QGIS. The main folder that we are interested in is this activities folder, which has a bunch of GPX files. So you can just take that folder and you can drag it over to your project folder. You can hold down the Option key so that it actually adds the files to this folder instead of moving them. If we now go into that activities folder, we can see that there are a bunch of GPX files. And if we scroll down a bit, we can also see that there are TCX files that have been compressed. TCX stands for Training Center XML. It was created by Garmin and includes additional workout data like heart rate, cadence, calories, and laps. QGIS doesn't natively support TCX files, but fortunately there are tools that let you convert them into GPX files as well as other formats. So over in QGIS, I'm going to create a new project by clicking the New Project button. I'm going to head up to the Project menu and choose Properties. And I'm going to give this the project title of Working with GPX 2. And click OK. And then I'm going to hit the Save button. And going to save this inside of my GIS GPX 2 folder. And just call that Working with GPX 2. Now, if you remember from last time, the way that we imported GPX files was by heading to the browser, opening up Project Home and the folder that we're interested in. Takes a little bit of time because there's a lot of files. And then we can open up each one and either drag in individual layers, or we can drag the file in and tell it which particular layer that we're interested in. Unfortunately, doing this for a large number of files, you're going to have to answer that dialog over and over and over again. That's not the recommended way that I would do that. What we want to do is merge all of those GPX files into one. And I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can do that. So the first method we're going to use is GPSBabel. This is an application and command line tool that you can use to convert geographic data from one format to another. It currently supports over 60 different file formats. You can also use it to merge multiple files into one, which is what we'll be using it for. So you're going to want to head over to the Downloads page, skip past the ads, and choose the release for your operating system. So once you start GPSBabel, this is the interface that you see, and it's the main interface you'll be using to convert files. In the upper left, we want to choose File, and we're going to set the format to GPX XML. Then under file names, we click this button and then we can select all the files that we want to convert or merge. So I'm going to click on the first entry, scroll down to the bottom and shift click the last GPX file in order to select them all. Then click open. You can leave options as is, and then under translation options, you want to make sure waypoints and routes are unchecked. Filters and more options can be left alone. Then at the bottom, you want to make sure file is selected. Change the format to GPX XML again. Click on the file name button, and I'm going to save this as Babel merged, and click save. And I'm saving that outside of the activities directory. You can leave the options there alone as well. And then if you hit OK, this will actually run. It's going to run a command and merge all those files together. We can then close this window. Back in QGIS, if we head up into the browser under Project Home, you can now see that we have Babel merged listed as a file. We can open that up and we can either drag the tracks in, or we can drag the entire file and then choose which we want. And if you give it a few seconds, it will figure out how many items are in each of these layers. There we go. So we can see now that we have 162 tracks inside of this file. So I'm going to hit add layers. And now you can see there's a bunch of lines. If we head over to this Babel merged layer, right click and choose attribute table, it's going to load all of those features. And we're going to click this button to dock it and maybe move it up a bit. And we can see that there's all these rides with these names, and they also happen to have a type. And you can see that there's cycling and hiking listed in here. I can click on type to actually sort them by that type. And you can see there's cycling, hiking, and walking listed here. So something interesting I just noticed is I know that I have over 270 activities on Strava, and I can see here that only 162 got imported. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. I don't know if that has to do with the limit of GPSBabel, or maybe the command it ran underneath was too long. But that's okay, because we have two more options for batch importing and merging GPX files. For the second one, we're going to be using the Batch GPS Importer plugin. So if you head up into plugins and choose manage and install plugins, we're going to click on not installed and choose Batch GPS Importer. I'm going to click that and click on install plugin. Once that's installed, there are two places that you can access this plugin from. One is under this menu bar called Plugins Toolbar, and there's an icon there for the Batch GPS Importer. The other place is underneath the vector menu. There's a new entry called Batch GPS Importer, and you can choose Batch GPS Importer. So this is somewhat similar to the GPSBabel interface. We're going to browse to a GPX folder. So that is our activities folder. Click open. The file name, prefix, and suffix allow you to filter based on name. We don't need to do that. We also don't need to scan subfolders. And we are only interested in tracks. So uncheck waypoint and route. Let's leave the name as combined GPX, and the geometry type we want to set to line because we're transforming tracks. And projection you can leave as is, and then click import. I don't know why this is taking so long. It did not take this long on my other Mac, but so be it. I'm just going to wait and see if it finishes. Okay, it has finally finished. I'm going to close the table of Babel merge stuff I'm going to right click on the one that the plugin imported and choose Open Attribute Table. And I'm going to dock this one as well. Now, the interesting thing here is we've lost our type field. But we do have the correct number of tracks. So why don't we right click on this and choose Zoom to Layer. And we can see that there's a bunch of different tracks. I'm going to zoom in on a particular portion here. I just happen to know where they are. I'm going to open up my XYZ tiles and add an OpenStreetMap layer and drag that down to the bottom. I'm going to hide everything except for the combined GPX. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So I can see that there's a bunch of tracks here that we've imported. For the second part of the video, I want to show you how to style these based on the type, whether it was hiking, walking, or biking. But we've lost that with this particular plugin. So fortunately, there's a third method that I'm going to show you. So if you point your browser to tools.lostmapper.com, I am working on some GIS related tools, and one of them is something to merge GPX tracks. So if I click on Merge GPX Tracks, it's going to take me to that portion of the website. So for Choose Files, I am going to click on that and navigate to my activities. And once again, click the first one, scroll all the way to the bottom, and shift click the bottom one to select all of them. And I'm going to click Upload. And then I've provided 3 different formats here: GeoPackage, GeoJSON, and GPX, GPS exchange format. For now, you don't have to worry about what those other 2 are, but we can just choose GPX exchange format and click Merge Tracks. This will take a little bit of time, and then you'll see that we will download a file. So if we head up to here, I can see that I've downloaded this merge GPX file. So let's take that file and let's move it into our GPX2 folder that we created. So back in QGIS, if I head up to the browser under Project Home, I can now see my merged.gpx. I can drag that into my project. It's going to count up how many features there are in each of these layers. I can see my track says 276, which is the correct amount. I'm going to click Add Layers. Cool. I'm going to right click on this and choose Open Attributes to look at the individual features inside of that layer. I'm going to click the Dock Attribute button to bring it down here. And I can see that I have my types. I have my cycling, I have my hiking, and walking inside of here. So let's head to the styling of our merge layer and make it a little bit easier to see. I'm going to double click on Merge Tracks, head to the Symbology tab, and once again, just going to choose Simple Red Line and hit OK. I'm then going to right click on the layer and choose Zoom to Layer, and that's going to show me the extent of all these tracks, of all these recordings. And you can see that there's some over here in Alabama and Tennessee, and then a few down here in South Carolina. And what I'd like to do is only focus on a small portion and not have to worry about, the other hundreds of rides and hikes. So what I'm going to do is zoom in on the ones that I'm interested in. So these will be here in and around DeSoto Park. And there's 2 ways that we can go about clipping these or cropping these features into their own layer. The first one is to head up to the Select Features tool, click on this, and click and drag around the features that we're interested in. And those will highlight in yellow. I can then right click on my layer, choose Export, and then choose Save Selected Features As. I'm going to change the format to GPX. I'm going to choose a file name. So let's move to our project folder and save this as DeSoto. You want to make sure that Save Only Selected Features is checked. I'm not entirely sure what this visual bug is. Open up the select fields, make sure those are all checked. You can hit select all if not. And everything else you can leave as is and click OK. That will then get added to your project home because we saved it there. And after a little bit of time, you can see that it is saving that information out. And once it's saved, it will reload it into the project. So I can uncheck my merge tracks, which is all of them, then head to DeSoto. I'm going to close the table for the merge tracks and then right click on DeSoto and open its attribute table, dock it. And we can see that there's only 58 tracks inside of this cropped section. So I'm going to close that table. I'm going to remove this layer that we just made, and I'm going to show you a second way that you can do this. So let's re-enable our merged tracks. I'm going to pick this deselect features and make sure that everything is deselected. I'm then going to head up to Layer, Create Layer, New Temporary Scratch Layer. And I'm going to call this one Clip because we're going to use this to basically select the area. And I'm going to change the geometry type to polygon. I can leave everything else as is and click OK. And we've now got this clip layer, which is a temporary layer, which you can see by this little sort of memory chip. Up here in the digitizing toolbar, we can see that edit mode is enabled. And what I'm going to do is head over to this add polygon feature. And I am going to draw a box around the areas that I am interested in. So I clicked in the upper left corner, clicked in the upper right corner, clicked in the lower right corner, click in the lower left corner. And then for this fifth click, instead of left clicking, I'm just going to right click. Now it's made this big gray square that's covering the things that I'm interested in. An easy thing we can do is double click and change the symbology and go to simple fill and change the fill style to no brush, hit OK. And now we can see through it, but still see that box. Next thing we're going to do is head up to this toggle editing button and click it to disable editing and tell it that we want to save our changes. Next, we're going to click on our merged tracks layer, head up to the vector menu, and under Geoprocessing Tools, we're going to choose Clip. And then in here, our input layer is going to be our tracks, and the overlay layer is going to be that clip layer that we made just a moment ago. And we're going to leave this clipped entry as is. It's going to make another temporary layer for us so we can look at it before we bother saving it. Hit run, and it's going to do a little bit of work, and that should happen successfully. There's this warning here about no spatial index. You don't have to worry about that for right now. That's more important when you're working with larger sets of data. For now, we're going to close this window. I'm going to uncheck the merge tracks and the clip layer that we made. And now we're left with just that clipped layer. And if we open up the attributes table for this and dock it again, we can see that there are just 59 entries. Now, if we were to save and exit this project or close it, it's going to let us know that there are temporary layers and they're going to be lost unless we do something about them. You can see there's a little warning here. Temporary scratch layer only. Contents will be discarded after closing this project. So we can save these by right-clicking on them, choosing Export, and choosing Save Feature As. Or we can also choose Make Permanent. So I'm going to choose Make Permanent. I'm going to choose GPS Exchange format. I'm going to change the file name. I'm going to just call this DeSoto Part 2 so it doesn't overwrite the existing one we made with the other method, and click Save. Again, all of these can be left as is, and you can click OK. And you can now see that our layer changed from, it lost its little memory chip. It's now a normal saved layer. Last thing we probably want to do is rename it. We can rename this DeSoto. The clipping one, it's up to you whether you want to keep it. I don't think we're going to need it anymore, so we can actually just click Remove. We can also remove our merged one since we're not going to be relying on that anymore. And I will zoom in to just the DeSoto ones and close the attribute table. Let's open up our DeSoto layer, double click on it, head to symbology and set the style to simple red line again. We can see all of our tracks. If we right click and open up the attribute table and dock it, we can see that we've got our names and we've got our types. And I'm going to sort by type and see that we have cycling, which is technically mountain biking, and hiking, and one walking. And what I'd like to do is actually style these different trails, these different tracks, based on whether or not we were hiking, walking, or cycling. I'm going to double click on the DeSoto layer, head into the symbology tab, and at the top, you can see that right now, single symbol is selected. If I click on this drop down, I can switch it to categorized, and this is going to let us style it based on a particular value. In this case, in the value field, I want to choose type. And then at the bottom here, what you can do is hit the classify button. And what that's going to do is look at all the possible values for type and make that an entry that we can specify a symbol for. So I hit classify, and you can see we've got cycling, hiking, and walking. And then this catch-all, which is if it doesn't have a value or it is one of these values, I'm going to use this fourth symbol. And as it is, we could hit OK now. We see we've got cycling is green, hiking is purple, walking is brown, and anything else is blue. So let's hit OK. And now you can see, if I close up the attributes table, I can see where I've done a lot of cycling over in this western and eastern part and a little bit in the middle. And I can see where I've done hiking, which is throughout the area. You can also turn these on and off. So if I uncheck cycling, that no longer shows up. If I uncheck hiking, those don't show up. And then the same with walking and this miscellaneous category. So I'll leave those off for now. If we wanted to get a little more fancy, we can go back into our symbology tab, and you can don't click on the value or the legend, click on the actual symbol itself and say, let's go into hiking, double click on that. That's going to bring up a symbol selector like we saw previously, but now it's sort of a nested one. And let's make this, let's head into simple line and change the stroke style to dash. Hit OK and hit apply. And now they have a different color and a different style of line. It's another way that you could differentiate these. And there's a lot of options in here. I would say feel free. You can change, if you want to change the size, like let's make this one and hit apply to see how that looks. You've got a thicker line for when you're hiking. I would suggest just going in here and playing around. There's even a lot of pre-made styles that you can mess around with, some with special effects. It's really a place to experiment and see what works best. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or subscribe to my channel, or both. That would be great. If you have questions, suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment below. You can also hit me up on Mastodon, or you can email me, brian@lostmapper.com. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.